Good morning and welcome to 4DMedical's presentation at the NWR virtual conference. 4DMedical commercialises XV technology, a 4D lung imaging platform that utilises proven and patented mathematic models and algorithms to convert X-ray scans into quantitative data. It's focused on creating a step change in the capacity of physicians to diagnose and manage patients with diseases of the lung. 4DMedical is commercialising its 4D XV lung imaging technology, which utilises patent algorithms to convert X-rays into, sorry, I just said that. Today from the company, we have Andreas Forrest, who's the Managing Director and CEO. He's been the company's CEO and CTO since leaving full-time academic research in 2013. And later the company rebranded from 4DX to 4DMedical. Since then, Andreas has taken XV technology through benchtop clinical and clinical validation, building 4DMedical into a world-class company with strong IP growth, a global presence across 3 continents, millions in revenue and multiple million-dollar grant awards, most recently being the prestigious MRFF Frontier Health and Medical Research Program. For those that are on the line, if you would like to ask any questions, please do so. I'm more than welcome to via the Q&A box down at the bottom. But I'll now hand it over to Andreas. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you, NWR, for the opportunity to communicate the 4DMedical story today. So I'll take this notice and disclaimer as read. 4DMedical has an amazing opportunity to attack a really very special market, and that market has some key characteristics. The first is that it is really very large. Lung health, and we know that today more than we did a year ago, is incredibly important and very significant globally for commercial reasons. There's about $1 trillion spend every year on lung health around the world, US $1 trillion. Out of that, we're addressing about a 3% slice of that market. So about a US $31 billion spend, which is delivered across about 377 million procedures worldwide. Now, the US is a key market in that because A, they have more procedures per head of population than other countries, and B, they pay more per procedure, leaving them with about a 45% of that global market opportunity. So, but not only is the market large, but it is really ripe for disruption. Existing diagnostics are failing us. When we speak to doctors, and we do that all the time, they're always giving us the information that they can't see inside of their patients' lungs. They don't understand what's happening to their patients because the current diagnostic tools don't pierce that veil, don't show them what's going on inside of the lung health of their patients. Now, while there are a large number of diagnostic tools available, 99% of all lung diagnostics globally are made up of 4 tests: spirometry, X-ray, CT, and nuclear medicine. So I'm going to talk us through those 4 procedures, what they deliver, what they don't, and then I will take us through and show the audience today XV technology, the 4DMedical solution. The pulmonary function test accounts for about 16% of all lung diagnostic procedures, which is remarkable because the technology was invented in the middle of the 1800s, so the mid-19th century. And you can see here a modern version of that test as performed in the GP's office. However, the test that we really see ourselves competing with is the complete PFT, typically performed in the hospital setting. And that test is about in the US, about a US $750 test. And while the technology is very old and substantially out of date, it really does have one key feature that has it stand out. And that is that the test measures how your lungs work. It provides functional data, and functional information really is the highest level of currency in medical diagnosis. However, because we're breathing from our mouth into a tube that measures how hard and how fast we can breathe, we really just get one number to represent the whole lung. So it's 1D in nature. And that means everything in the lung is just being averaged out. And that means that if you have something which is just covering, a condition which is developing in one part of the lung, that signal is lost, is missed until that condition spreads to a larger part of the lung, which is exactly the opposite of what we're looking for. X-ray technology, also a 1800s technology invented in the late 1890s, is widely used and is the most commonly delivered procedure. And it's quite different in nature to a pulmonary function test in that there's no functional component. So there's no information about how the lungs work. There's just an image of the appearance of the lungs. And from that, highly skilled radiologists and doctors will look at that X-ray and form a guess as to how they think the lung works. So from that test, as you stand in front of an X-ray machine, you take a deep breath in, and you get that still two-dimensional image. This procedure is substantially less expensive at about $120 in the US per test. And while there are some levels of radiation, the amount of radiation is really very, very low. And the key things that have X-ray technology keeping its share of the market are, while it's two-dimensional in nature, it's structural, not functional, so really of quite limited clinical value, it maintains its share because everywhere around the world, X-ray equipment is really highly available. So the equipment is ubiquitous, relatively inexpensive, and the radiation is low, so it's safe as well. CT technology is really the most modern of the technological offerings here, and works in a way that's in concept very similar to an X-ray, in that subject will take a deep breath in, hold still, and we get an image of the patient's lungs. Now, this image is not two-dimensional as in an X-ray, but is a highly detailed three-dimensional scan. And this means that the doctors can see around and see things in substantially more detail without confusion that you get often in an X-ray. But that additional technology, that additional offering comes at some substantial cost. One is it's about $525 US per scan, so 4 times the cost of an X-ray. But for a standard, what's called a HRCT, the radiation is 70 times that of an X-ray. So there is some real safety issues. So there's a real cancer risk as a result from that CT procedure. But those risks are offset by that high resolution and highly detailed view that you get of the patient's lungs, notwithstanding the fact that it's not functional. It's just a structural only an image of the appearance of the lungs. Just very quickly touch on nuclear medicine. It's really in some ways it's a high tech version of some of the more high tech than the other imaging procedures. But and it provides some functional information of the patient's lungs. However, that's substantially offset by the substantial cost of a scan, the most common scan being called a VQ scan, and the fact that the testing is quite time consuming, requires the use of radioactive particles and other agents introduced into the body. So it's complex to administer, expensive, and that means we have about a 1% utilization rate in that US market. So I'm very excited now to introduce to you XV technology from 4DMedical. You'll see here on the screen an XV scan. And you can see immediately that is completely different to anything else out there in the market. And what you're looking at on this video, every point of color as this video plays, is a precise measurement of air flowing through that part of the lung as that subject takes that breath. And that's globally unique offering that we are able to measure airflow not only everywhere throughout the lung, so functional information of the lung, and not just in 1D or 2D or 3D, but in fact in 4D. It's incredibly rich data. So when doctors see this, they get incredibly excited about the opportunities. Then when we add to that, I think our exciting business model, which is that we're able to offer this technology as a software as a service issuing. So the patient will go and use existing X-ray equipment that's already in every hospital around the world has about a 20-second scan. That scan delivers about 2 times the radiation of a single chest X-ray, but that's still 35 times less than a CT. And from that, our software is able to extract this scan data and deliver a detailed report back to the hospital. So we're able to offer a very high-tech, very rich functional report to the doctor, but without them having to purchase any capital equipment to deliver that. And if we talk a little bit about why the doctors are so excited, and that is that just at one glance, they can know so much about their patient's lungs. We know that healthy lungs are uniform. So in a patient with healthy lungs, and this is just one slice of a scan here, the lungs of a healthy patient are uniform. There's uniform ventilation throughout all phases of the breath. However, if we look at this diseased lung scan, we can see a region where there's very different to the tissue around. So a very substantial defect here in the lungs, a more subtle defect up in the apex towards the top of this lung. And we can also see, and this defect would not be detected by any of the other scans that, any of the other tests that we showed here today, or in fact, we believe not by any other test available today at all. And here we can see this compensation where the healthy tissue is, in fact, the healthy lung is working overtime to make up for the poor results in the rest of the lung. So really the crux of our offering from a technological point of view is we offer competitive advantages against each of these 3 modalities, which right now occupy 98% of the market. Functional, we have spirometry has its market share because it offers functional insight. It measures airflow, as does our technology, but not in 1D, in 4D. X-ray has its market share because the equipment is widely available, low cost and low dose. Well, in fact, we leverage that. We utilize X-ray equipment to conduct our scan. A CT has its share of the market because high resolution and high detail. Well, we have our share of the market. But we also have high resolution and high detail. In fact, not only are we 3D, but we're 4D, and we're not measuring lung structure, but lung function. So we feel we have substantial competitive advantages against each of these products without having any of their disadvantages. And you don't have to just take it from us. We have really very strong support from leaders in the medical and business community. We're very excited to have Dr. Sam Huppert on our advisory board. He is, of course, CEO and co-founder of the exciting Australian success story, Pro Medicus. The technology the XV technology was first invented by myself in 2005 and was taken through various stages of development at Monash University, founding the company in 2013. So we had our 7th birthday earlier this year, accelerating that validation, getting through various stages of benchtop testing, hospital testing, FDA clearance, and now TGA clearance as well for the product. The core of the business opportunity is that we have access to a healthcare size market, a $31 billion global opportunity, but that can be delivered through a software as a service business model that can rapidly gain uptake in that space. So we have a system that allows rapid deployment. In fact, we don't even have to visit a site to deploy the software. No upfront costs. Those delivery costs are small and easily covered by the company. Once we have that platform in place, we can add additional products, and we're able to scale up rapidly because we use existing cloud platforms such as Microsoft that allows us just to layer and scale extremely quickly on top of all of that. We have a workflow that sits exactly in the norms, the perfect norms of exactly how imaging is done ordinarily in the hospital, and the imaging sequence, once taken in the hospital, goes automatically to a PACS. Our software then automatically performs the analysis, delivers the report back to the hospital seamlessly without anyone, not a single extra click of a mouse. No one has to raise a finger to push the product on its way through that flow. And that's been so far with our first product, our XV product that measures airflow everywhere in the lungs. We're very excited to be in a position to be talking about our second product. that measures both airflow and blood flow in the lungs. That will allow us to come to head-to-head competition with nuclear medicine scans, giving us access to a really premium price component of the market, driving up our price per unit, and also really filling out that market share so that we can be more protected from competition. We have very significant barriers to entry. We have been here for 15 years. We have first mover advantage. We have 43 patents, 15 of them granted, 70 papers in the literature. So if someone can get past our first mover advantage, 300 or so person years of development, get past 43 patents and growing, publish over 70 peer-reviewed publications in the literature, they'll find that when they get to the end of that after 2 or 3 or 4 years, that we're already on product number 2 and product number 3. At this point, I think our advantage, our first mover advantage, is somewhat insurmountable. We have a fantastic group of people to help make all of this happen. I'll just quickly select just two of our directors. For example, our chair, Bruce Rathie, a long-time director at Australian Success Story, Polinovo, and John Livingston, a founder of another Australian ASX-listed success story, Integral Diagnostics. All of the board members are really great. We have fantastic advisory as well on top of that. And as we do have an amazing executive team, incredibly well qualified, very passionate, very dedicated to our cause. As of the last few days, this is our capital structure. And once again, I think our commercialization strategy can be described really very simply. Typically, products have this offering in the medical space of either being discounted products that compete with existing products on price, or quality products that are more expensive and offer a quality exchange for that. We have the very rare offering that we are safer and more pleasant for the patient, so an improved patient experience. We have improved patient outcomes, earlier diagnostic tests, richer quality of data to the doctor, at the same time as reduced cost of care. So safer, cheaper, and a better diagnostic outcome. It really is very compelling for the hospital and very easy to implement, as we've already discussed. Our commercialization strategy, we're currently here in stage 2. So the key things to be on the lookout for us now is as we progress forward with launching pilots. Now that we're in 2 markets in both the United States and Australia, you can expect to hear from us in coming months about pilot opportunities in both Australia and the United States. We will be targeting those and looking to expand both our clinical trial sites and our pilot sites into commercial sales with an on-the-ground direct sales force. That will really be the launching pad for us to then go into national expansion across Australia and the United States, and then to expand globally, and not only globally with that product, but with the second and third products that come into the pipeline as we go forward. Very exciting clinical trial partners. If we just touch on one point here, we have the Cleveland Clinic, University of Alabama, Vanderbilt, Mass General, which is Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Duke, Cedars, Temple, really the best brand names in the United States, with the best doctors at those hospitals working with us. Australian opportunity is really very significant. $400 million total spend out of 5 million procedures in Australia. And we're really very excited about the clinical trial spend that we're making in the United States, really being of great use to us here in Australia, as well as making use of our hometown advantage, our knowledge of the people and places in the marketplace here, really make Australia very exciting for us. Growth areas abound. We are working on not only on new products, but new functionality of the existing product. We'll be able to layer all of that into our existing platform without new layers. We're working very hard to gain reimbursement, which will be a step change in our ability to penetrate the market. Expansion of global presence. We're moving from one product in 2 jurisdictions to multiple products across multiple jurisdictions. Finally, COVID is disrupting to a limited extent our operations, particularly in the United States. However, we're being very agile and coming up with great ways to work around those COVID difficulties. At the same time, we're working hard to make use of that presence of COVID in the population in the United States as a really significant opportunity for us to show our worth and to add value to the care of those patients. All of this will generate great news flow, pilot launches, Australia and the United States, clinical trials as we release them, and then expanding out from one product, as I said, in one country, 2 products in 2 countries to multiple jurisdictions. Really excited about the news flow, particularly over the next 6 months, which we think is there ahead of us. So just to summarize, we have a product which is being cleared by the FDA and the TGA, offering superior outcomes at lower costs, great market opportunity with growth drivers across the whole region, a model which is both capital light for us and for our customers, a platform that can allow us to rapidly and efficiently deploy, great relationships with the best brand names on the product, very wide and very deep moat, keeping the competitors out, and the opportunity to scale very rapidly, and a fantastic team to make sure that all happens. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Andreas. We've had a number of questions that have come through. For those that did have any others, please do so via the Q&A box down the bottom. But the first question is, could you detail the opportunity for 4DX to test patients who have had the coronavirus?
So I think great question. At the moment, the nuclear tests and the rapid tests are really absolutely the best way to detect if someone has coronavirus. But of course, that's really only the first part of the question. Doctors are then really wanting to know how do they need to treat that patient? How severe is the lung condition? And even for patients that never visit the hospital, you may have heard, for example, of these long-haul COVID patients who have ongoing lung conditions for months after their initial diagnosis, and of course, those patients who end up escalating through their care. If you go to 4DMedical.com/COVID, you can see more details there about what our value proposition is. But quite simply, we can see exactly how healthy someone's lungs are. Fantastically informative for the healthcare team to know, should that person be in the ward, at home, or in ICU? What treatment should they be getting? Are they getting better or worse? Really a fantastic tool to aid the management of those COVID patients.
Right, next question. Thanks for the presentation. I ask how 4DMedical's product can be compared with that of Canon Vital Images. So
there are a number of products in the marketplace that are effectively, CT based products, and add some degree of additional diagnosis or diagnostic value, or automation of performance on top of that of a CT. And I believe that the product you're referring to is precisely one of those. We feel that there's a world of difference between CT images, which relate to that of a still lung during a breath hold, and showing the amount of air, the amount of aeration in the lung, and from which we're looking to infer the degree of function. Our test directly measures ventilation as the patient breathes, and provides a far richer, far more detailed map of what's happening in the patient's lungs. No other test provides that 4-dimensional map of ventilation, of airflow in every region of the lung throughout every phase of the breath. And on top of that, our test provides some really fantastic scores, which are very helpful for the physician to rapidly make their decisions. Scores about how uniform the lung is, where there are regions of poor ventilation, and where there are regions of compensation.
Next question. Has interest from hospitals increased with COVID-19 pandemic?
There's been a combination of two things which are pushing in opposite directions as a result of COVID. And that is that there is absolutely more interest from hospitals and doctors for technology that can aid them in the treatment of their patients. But at the same time, and particularly in the United States, which is our first and key market, there's also a substantial distraction for those doctors and hospitals. For me, the analogy is there is a fire crew, doing their best to put out a fire, and we're there, with our latest, hovercraft laser fire truck, to help them to do their job. But really their ability to, to slow down what they're doing, pay the attention, and make some changes in their practice right now are also somewhat limited. And especially the key decision makers at the moment are the people who are most impacted by COVID. So we absolutely do get more interest, but also at the same time, those same people are more distracted. And we are breaking through. We're doing quite well in that regard. But I think as COVID calms down a little bit more in the United States, I think that'll really accelerate.
Right. Have any of the US hospitals involved in the trials, i.e. Cleveland Clinic, signed on to use the product? If not, what is your confidence levels that they will be customers?
I have a very high degree of confidence that substantial majority of our clinical trial partners will over time become our paying customers. But we're well away from that at this point. We're about to deploy our pilot sites, and then once we have our pilot sites completed, then we'll be opening to the market and commencing that sales process, looking for customer number 1, 2, 3, and 4 for this new FDA cleared product. And as said, over time, we're very confident that the substantial majority of our clinical trial partners, perhaps all of them, will end up being our paying customers. But the time that it takes for an organization the size of the Cleveland Clinic, as an example, to sign on to a new arrangement, the contracting time, the legal time, is really quite substantial. So while we do have great interest from those parties, they are very interested in our technology by definition, or they wouldn't have taken the risk to be our clinical trial partners. They're unlikely to be our first hospitals that we sign on. But I think we're absolutely expecting to get a number of customers signed on this financial year. Some of them may be those larger sites, but we would expect more likely to be looking for those big clinical trial sites to be in the financial year after that. So next year.
Next question is, will most patients or hospitals be prepared to pay for this on top of the radiologists they're already paying? How difficult will the process be to get Medicare to pay for this extra cost, especially in Australia?
Yeah, so I think this technology will be a substantial cost saving for everyone involved. So we're not replacing. This is not in addition to the radiologist. We'll be using the standard radiology practice. So there'll be a radiologist involved. The imaging will be done. The X-ray imaging will be done using radiology staff. The review of those X-rays be done by the radiologist. So we're not looking to replace that process, but it will be a substantial saving. Our test is cheaper than a CT, which is the key product we're competing with. Also cheaper than a pulmonary function test. So it's really not a matter of where will the money be found. That's a key driver of our business model, and that we offer substantially richer, more detailed information than those other tests, and we can do so at a lower cost. So we're very confident about there being interest in the way to find that money to pay for our tests.
And just an extension of that question: how many hospitals are undertaking a pilot? Are these programs paid or unpaid?
So the pilot programs will be, will largely speaking be unpaid programs, and that gives us a great opportunity to be in the real hospital environment, running the technology front to back, not just the product itself, which has been thoroughly tested, but all of the support structures that go around that. The customer support, IT, billing, and so on. And that's really something that's of great value to the business, to have us stand that up in the hospital environment, and and get really clear feedback from close potential customers in that space. But we are very much expecting or hoping that those pilot programs, as well as our clinical trial programs that we were just discussing before, will all have high conversion rates across into paying customers.
Right. Next question is, do retrospective X-ray data sets from things such as employee cold board medicals lend themselves to have this SaaS applied to them, or are there very specific X-ray process requirements?
Yes, the acquisition protocol for the X-ray, that's the X-ray acquisition protocol has to be done according to 4DMedical standards, or we're unable to use those X-rays to do the analysis. And it's not surprising, given how much additional detail we have in our tests, in our 4D scan report, than is available from a standard occupational X-ray, for example. But the cost of collecting those X-rays, the radiation dose of collecting those X-rays, are both really very modest. And I think that, as an example, occupational diseases, such as coal mining, silicosis, and so on, really are great candidates for fantastic opportunities for our value proposition.
And just in terms of the pilots, how many scans have been done to date?
So we have in total, I guess a relatively modest number of scans. We have, many hundreds of scans that have been acquired for the technology. In particular, our core clinical trial had about 63 scans, I believe, from memory. But that number is growing rapidly as we roll out that technology, both in clinical trials and in pilots.
Right. And last question, could you please provide a bit more detail on the process for onboarding a hospital or a GP clinic? How long does it take?
Actually, the process can be really very fast, depending on the IT systems already in place at that hospital or clinic. And everything about the product is built to be completely complementary with existing systems, such as existing clinic or hospital PACS systems for the collection and storage of medical images. And so for us, the worst case scenario is about 1 week of effectively of IT, which can be performed from on-site, or of course can be also performed from remotely. So anywhere from 1 day to 1 week to do the installation.
All right, thanks so much, Andreas. There's still a number of questions that we'll come back to separately on the email, but I might hand it back to you just to wrap up and close up there, please.
We are, we've been really thrilled by the level of support that we've had from the market in our technology, but at the same time, we're also really very excited by the progress that we're making. And as I said, we'll be in a position over the rest of this financial year to be making a number of announcements that are really very excited about progress the company is making, and looking forward to announcing that progress and communicating that progress to the market over the next 3, 4, 5 months.
Great. Thanks so much, Andreas, and thanks all for joining.